Hey, welcome to the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute with your host, the alchemist of Indiana's Black Forest, Alan Bishop. Hey, this channel is all about home distilling and legal distilling. If you've got questions, reach out to us in the comments below, social media, or via bishopshomegrown@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out thealchemistcabinet.com. Hey, what's up, guys? Another talking head video for you here from the tiny bedroom studio of One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. I almost once again said, if you have ghosts, you have everything. Which, by the way, I hope you guys are enjoying the videos that I've uploaded. I've done a couple of those so far with the podcasts from previous episodes. I intend to do a few more of those in the near future because they've gotten pretty good responses. And I think that I reach an audience on this platform with YouTube, with If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything, that I ordinarily would not reach via my other podcast channels. So if you guys aren't into that stuff, that's fine. You don't have to be. I don't expect you to be. For me, distillation, music, art, the paranormal, Fortean, high strangeness, spirituality, it's all one thing as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, they've been my channel, my rules. Videos go on my channel, guys. So not that anyone's complained, I'm just saying, I'm sure at some point, because everyone always has some kind of complaint, right? So anyways, I hope you guys are enjoying those. We're gonna jump into a couple questions here today and see how well I answer them for you guys. I hope you guys are still enjoying the videos. They still seem to be getting quite a few views. I'm happy with the audience that we have. I didn't set out to have a huge channel. I set out to have a dedicated channel of people who were really interested in taking their art to the next level. And I think that's what we have here at the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. If you've not checked out the One Piece at a Time Sacred and Profane podcast, go over to Spotify and check that out. Some topics over there that I go more in depth into that I don't get into here on the video channel that I think you might also find some use in, and be on the lookout. Very beginning of February at some point, we will be offering up for sale the very first Distiller's Almanac, Practical Distiller's Almanac that I've been working on here recently. This will be a yearly thing. I think this might even become a replacement for the existing books that I've been doing over time, to where maybe as I do research and I figure out things or I experiment with things, instead of writing up a whole book on distillation, I just include them in the almanac potentially. So we'll see. I may still do a book number 3 or book number 4 as well. I don't know. It depends on how bored I get and if I have enough time on my hands to be able to do something like that. I'm pretty stretched thin as it is, if you guys haven't noticed. I've got a lot of professional projects and a lot of hobbies and a lot of responsibilities around my own homestead that sometimes it makes such things difficult, as you can imagine. But you can find all that stuff at thealchemistcabinet.com. It'll be up there as soon as it's available. Also, don't forget book number 1 and book number 2 are there. They are available. We do have some copies on hand as we speak, and we are preparing to order more copies for you guys. So let's jump right into it here. So, Alan, I love your videos and appreciate you sharing your knowledge. Recently got into the hobby. Question about water calculations. I'm a beer brewer and understand all grain brewing and developing beer recipes and getting my wort volume correct for my... not sure what that says. Something translated well into an all grain oh, it's because my email got cut off there. I do apologize. I don't have the entirety of your question. Long and short of it, something about translating well into an all grain for mashing for distilling. Got a hold of 30 pounds of Bloody Butcher and decided to go all grain. 7.5 pounds malted 2-row for your 12-gallon batch. Used 13 gallons of water to mash in with. I had to squeeze out all 37 pounds of grain by hand to get enough wash, basically. Is there another way? How do you deal with so much grain? Is there a standard absorption rate of corn to consider? Should I use a bigger vessel and more water to reach my 12 gallons? Any help would be awesome. Well, that's the problem with all grain at home, right? Is that if you don't lauter in some way, shape, or form, and you don't have a still that you can put solids into, it's pretty thick. And there's really, unfortunately, no great way around it other than to squeeze the grain out by hand. As far as water calculations, typically when I make a mash bill, I'm looking at the water being maybe 70% or so of the total volume overall for like a 1075 mash bill, something of that nature, maybe even a little higher. Bearing in mind that when I'm at work, I have the ability to put the grain in a still. Unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for what you're asking other than to squeeze it out in some way, shape, or form. Some people use the mop buckets. That's pretty common. I get like these big stainless steel sieves basically, and I pour the mash through that, let the liquid run off of it, and then you can kind of take that sieve and sort of slam it against the edge of the bucket. That'll get the rest of the liquid out of it. Then what I'll do is I'll transfer that. This is all a bitch, by the way. It doesn't make it any better. Transfer all of that over into another container, and once I've gotten through all that grain, got all the liquid off that can, then I will go and I will add some water back into that grain that I've pulled all the liquid off of, mix it up real good, maybe, you know, enough to get 5 gallons floating above the existing grain. Once the grain bed settles, let that grain bed settle, and then go in and pour or pull off all that liquid on top. That's mostly water, but it has washed some of the alcohol out of that existing grain. Something like lautering or sparging, you might say, but sort of a redneck poor man's version of it. Otherwise, the only thing I know to do, man, is to really just do a lauter / sparge and, you know, push some water through it twice after you've gotten off the main amount of liquid, and hope that you wash some of that sugar out before you do your fermentation, and then just ferment off the grain. But otherwise, I don't have a great answer, unfortunately. Now, the thing that we've been working on, myself and Wayne from Ozark Stillworks, is obviously the Johnny 5 Submarine still, which presumably will have the full ability to allow you to put all the grains into the still and be able to not worry about squeezing those grains, getting that liquid or that sugar out of them, or that alcohol out of them, and being able to run on the grain in the still. I'm about 98% convinced that we're where we need to be with that thing. I need to run it a few more times as we get back into warm weather and I can do some fermentation to experiment with it to be absolutely positive. But otherwise, man, I don't have a whole lot there. I wish I did. Unfortunately, I'm not made of magic. Sometimes I wish I was, and God knows that I've scorched plenty of times in stills, especially experimenting and trying to figure out what will work, what won't work. Because I try to approach it from the, especially with test out stuff from Wayne, I try to approach it from the perspective of not only what would I ordinarily do, but what would somebody that's not me maybe try to do, and make sure that that's, you know, full safe before anybody else gets a hold of it. So moving on here. So this one's from TJ in Winnipeg. Hello, Alan and gang at One Piece at a Time. I have a question about how much copper is enough copper. I'm in the process of swapping out the still head on my 3-inch Spirits flute column from an all copper One Piece D-Flag Lebesgue unit that is just a pain to handle. It's bulky, awkward, fragile, and frankly underpowered, as the Lebesgue condenser is only 18 inches by ½ inch. I'm swapping it out for an 8x3 stainless steel 8-bore D-Flag and a 24x2-inch 8-bore shotgun condenser with a nice Parrot with drain. The flute column has 6x3 plates that are copper, 2 times upcomers and 1 downcomer on each plate. I will still be doing my stripping runs on a modified pot still with a 36x3 copper column. So my question is that enough copper contact? If not, could I collect into a copper pitcher or something to make up the shortage? Thanks as always from the great frozen north. Great question, TJ. I've sort of covered this a little bit in the past on the channel, but you know, you have more than enough copper there, I think. I've talked about as long as fermentations are fairly clean, right? And as long as you're using good yeast strains that don't develop a lot of acetaldehyde, or they don't, what's the word I'm looking for? So they are low acetone producers, right? Acetate and acetone producers. That's what the SO2 and the H2S bonds to. You need really very little copper in the system to remediate that to a greater or lesser degree. In fact, the copper is mostly active in the vapor path of the still as opposed to in the body of the still. The only product I'd say that you really want copper in the body of the still itself is if you're doing double pot stilled single malt. I prefer to have copper there in the stripping run and the doubling run. But since you already have copper in the stripping run, you're taking care of a lot of that SO2 H2S problem that you might otherwise have. And just a little bit of copper in the vapor path, just a little bit of packing or copper plates, whatever you've got there, and you said in there, but I'm short-minded today, that will be more than enough to take care of whatever you need. You really don't need a whole lot of copper, to be honest with you guys, especially if you're not making dirty fermentations. Now, if you're making real dirty fermentations that drag on for, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks, yeah, you might want a little more copper in the system, but most of you have your fermentation protocols under control to such a degree that I don't think it's much that you have to worry about, truthfully. So anyways, guys, reach out to me with all your questions at bishopshomegrown@gmail.com or in the YouTube comments below or any of my social media, and be sure to check out thealchemistcabinet.com. I love y'all. I hope you're staying warm. Take care of yourselves. I'll catch you soon.